Nah, match up.
All right, what's going on, y'all? This is your girl, your cousin Tanisha Peoples live talk that real shit with my brothers Jason B. Allen and Nehemiah Frank. We missed y'all last Monday. We hope y'all missed us too, but we back talking shit today. And as always, we got some dope ass guests. We have Dr. Charles Cole. Just to give y'all a heads up, Charles is another brother, and he's the one that kicked me off having these podcast conversations. So if y'all want to thank anybody for hearing my voice more often than maybe you want to, is Dr. Charles Cole. So yeah, we finally got him on the show, and we have another a dope ass sister, Kim Jones. She's an activist. She's an author. She's wrecking shit in the streets. So y'all give it up for our guests. Thank y'all for being here. If y'all got some, want to give some intros better than what I gave, feel free to jump in and tell us how y'all doing and how y'all weekend was.
Well, I flew to Tulsa to deal with the whole mass grave situation. But other than that, I'm back in Atlanta already, dealing with some stuff in Gwinnett County. Jason can probably tell you a lot about it. But we pretty much have a school board elected official incumbent. She's up for re-election. She pretty much said at a 2017, actually, she did say in a 2017 deposition that she still has no opinion about Brown versus Board of Education, which is absolutely insane. So I'm just like, she's running on Law and Order Light with Gwinnett County schools as well, wanting to keep all of the school resource officers with no transition or any type of pathway to addressing the high ACE scores that children, Black and Brown, are dealing with due to systemic racial trauma.
So also, I just want to add to that. Mary Kay has been on this school board since the end of the goddamn 50s. She was in 1959 making statements about disenfranchising Black children. And I'm like, Gwinnett, we have to stop allowing Governor Kemp and these leaders to say that, oh, Gwinnett is the most diverse district in Georgia, and look at what they're doing, and they're a staple in education, and all of our school districts need to mirror what they're doing. Because here's what Gwinnett is doing. They set aside $2 million for SROs, which are police officers in schools. The majority of these officers are going into predominantly Black and Brown populated schools. They also have one of the highest rates of disenfranchising Black and Brown children by suspending them out of school, in school, with unfair and biased discipline policies. So we are seeing Black women that are on the front line standing up saying we need to get out and vote. We need to change this. And so when I'm seeing these conversations on Facebook from Black heterosexual men who are saying, no, we don't need to vote because they're so focused on Joe Biden and Donald Trump, we still have other things that are taking place that we need people to get out to vote and change. Because why would we keep allowing the likes of a Mary Kay, who is telling you who she represents? They have a whole video that says our children, not a person of color even mopping the floor in the video. So they don't even acknowledge us as a people. So I just wanted to put that out there, that it's not just another bullshit school board election, a time to vote that people may think. This is something that is really happening to our children. And the question I want to leave with is, what do we want future generations of Black children to have to deal with, because we want to continue to be silent and overlook it?
Right.
I mean, you know what? And we were having this conversation before we got started. Like, it used to frustrate the hell out of me when you have those people that jump up on social media like, I'm not voting for this reason and A, B, C, D, E. It's like somebody who's an atheist and, they jumping on social media on Easter talking about, I'm not going to church, I don't mess with Jesus. It's just like, for what? If those are your beliefs, and I get that social media is a place for opinions, but if those are your beliefs, then why are you trying to dissuade people or encourage people to do stupid shit that impacts their future?
Right.
So I get it that people are, they tired of politics, they tired of these elected officials. And as I've been saying, if you don't want to vote, or if you feel like the elected officials are trash, which they have been, then be proactive in uplifting somebody that can represent us adequately. Like we can't wait every 4 years to start talking shit or be upset about who's on the ballot, who's on the ticket, when we ain't done nothing to put nobody up there that'll work, that'll represent us.
Who have we invested in, right? We have to invest in it. And I definitely want to hear from Charles and Kim, but I want to pivot this point that even in our culture, in our community, there's nothing against entertainers. And don't get me wrong, I love entertainers. I have them on my wall, those that have given back to our community and done their just due. I'll even go a step further to say that even Herman Cain, a lot of people did not value what that brother had to say, but this is what I know about Herman Cain, that he took care of home. Because in the community, he made sure that the communities that he was from in Atlanta, that his family still lived in, he gave money to nonprofit organizations to help drive the work. Now, whether he was running after Trump, supporting Trump, not doing his due diligence for the collective Black America, that's his prerogative. But I do know that the Republicans and Black people have not praised that brother once, but we would praise Black rappers. And it's not entertainers, it's specifically Black rappers that have been praised over supporting Black teachers that are dying because they're being pushed back in overcrowded classrooms. And so I just want to challenge that mindset that we would take up, defend, put our careers on the line for Black male rappers, but we would turn a blind eye to Black teachers that are literally dying in overcrowded
or three Black women
save our children. Or 3 Black women running for school board. Exactly.
I mean, we said a lot. Charles, Kim, jump in where y'all want to, like, because it's a mouthful, like, legit.
I think also, like, we need to be taking advantages of the services that are available to us to push forward new candidates. So, Vote, Run, Lead, which is a nonpartisan organization. They liberal as hell over there at Vote, Run, Lead. They're nonpartisan. It's a nonpartisan organization that supports and grooms women to run. So you're not just talking about, this is an organization that is going to put money behind it. They actually take the time to take a year, 2 years, even up to 5 years to groom a candidate. And if you look at their slogan, it's like, we groom women to run and we win. They rarely lose, because by the time they get done grooming a candidate, you're like a super candidate. You're undefeated. You're unbeatable. Mm-hmm. And so they're very selective about who they allow in the program, because they know they want people who are going to win and they want to fill those seats. We got about 15 very significant, important seats coming up in the state of Georgia after November over the next 2 years that we need to be paying attention to. Some of these, there's over 200 judge seats that are coming up nationally. That's the other reason why you have to look at what's going on with the federal election. And I'm a firm believer that the local election is far more important, because these are the people who govern you day to day. Jason knows that I tell people all the time, my best example is, marijuana is decriminalized in Fulton County. You can literally stand on the corner of Moreland and Memorial here in Atlanta and stand on the Fulton side and get a $50 ticket and walk across the street to DeKalb and go to jail for the same user's amount of marijuana. And so you have to look at who is making sure that we are doing things that specifically affect Black people. And we have to look at politicians that have specific Black plans, because guess what? Over the past 400 years in this nation, there have been specific plans, whether you're talking about Black codes, where you're talking about the deconstruction of Reconstruction, whether you're talking about mass incarceration, whether you're talking about redlining, whether you're talking about unfair and unjust housing. All of that can be manipulated by your local elections, your school boards, all of that. You don't like the school books where they got slaves dancing and happening, singing in the school books like they were immigrants who came over here to work and earn money, then you need to make sure that you have a school board president that's not strictly buying their books from Texas.
You better preach. You better preach.
Come on through.
I mean, y'all said a lot. I agree with you. I don't know. I would say this. I think that I do think that people should be able to. Is your vote? You should do it. You can do whatever you want to it. I think voting is important, and I think that if you are swayed by a rapper in this late stage, I'm more worried about you than I am that rapper. And I think that one of the things that I would just say is you got to do your research for yourself. And you need to have a plan regardless of who wins. I have a plan if Biden wins. I got a plan if Trump wins. I don't think that I'm black in this country. I'm a man in this country. And you know what I'm saying? Like, so you're gonna have to push regardless. I have a PAC in Oakland around school board where we're supporting some school board candidates. And if the candidates that I endorse win, there's a plan and I'm ready to push them. And if the folks that I am not pushing win, I need to cheer for them because those are our kids' success, and that's not about me or those candidates. But I got a plan for that. So as a black person, I think you should just always have a plan because these systems have never served us well, and they definitely haven't served us well in mass, regardless of who's in those seats and who's in those offices. So what's the plan that you got for you and yours, and just making sure that you do your own homework?
That part. So let's jump in because we already touching on some of the pieces of the conversation that we plan on having today. And y'all know how we are. We jump around, so follow us. But like, it's gonna be great conversation, dope conversation anyway. And today's topic is raised up radical. I think everybody that's on this panel, I guess you can call it, are radical to a certain extent. Some of us just die hard radical. Some of us are radical in boardrooms, radical on the picket lines. We do it all everywhere. So we're talking about raised up radical, and I just want to get a little bit from Kim and Charles about how they kind of got into being activists and specifically working with kids. So how did y'all get to this point? Because nobody I say all the time in high school and grammar school, nobody put on their little yearbook post like I want to be an activist. So how did y'all get here?
Okay, Tanisha, you definitely from Chicago.
How you know that?
We're from the Wild Hundreds. Who say grammar school besides us?
You right.
Yeah,
I would check that out.
I went to Julian. So I, how it all, oddly enough, it wasn't in my yearbook, but oddly enough, it began very, very young for me. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I may or may not have made national news from cussing out President Reagan. That's neither here nor there. I mean, my mom, we recovered from that. So yeah, they wanted to like interview my sister, who's 6 years older than I am, who was like a teenager, and they were looking to interview somebody who was gonna, they wanted a youthful voice. And my sister's still very like painfully shy and like wouldn't say anything. And they were like, yeah, we want to talk to you about these policies. And my sister was like kind of shaking her head. And I was like, I got plenty to say about what's going on with Reagan and the say no to drugs and all that. Give me the mic. And they were like, you're 8. And I'm like, but I got something to say. And people were calling my mother from like all over the country, like, your baby on national news because I'm the president. But it started there. And so my mother saw that I had this interest. So I went to after school programs at DuSable Museum, at Operation Push Rainbow Coalition, at the ETA. Yeah, I say, I'm a Southside girl. But yeah, so I started getting groomed very, very early. My viral speech, "How Can We Win?" The first line is the first line from an address that was given by Reverend Willie T. Barrow, may God rest her soul, who ran Operation Push. She had a speech where she said, "We must never forget that economics was the reason Africans came to America." And so that was instilled in me at like 10. And I carried that with me my whole life. In high school, I started my own homeless program where I fed the homeless with my allowance every week. I would go downtown Chicago, collect about 10 homeless people, take them to eat. And I did that every Saturday of my life, like from 7th grade through high school. And then, I went to school. I went to Columbia College in Chicago, studied film. But even then, I know I wanted to use my creative platform as a writer to have something to say. And so I've tried to do that throughout the years. But really like hardcore, heavy frontlining, I started about 3 years ago when I met my good friend, Yanajaha Lone Wolf, who is the granddaughter of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I met Yanajaha. And she's a hardcore frontliner. She was like, "You coming with me?" And the first person that I marched with was Monteria Robinson, Jamaican Robinson's mom, which is probably one of the most heinous police brutality cases in history that goes unchecked. You know what I mean? And so that kind of was the spark of it, was marching with the Georgia Moms 3 years ago with Yanajaha. But prior to that, I was the general manager for Little Shop of Stories, a children's bookstore here in Decatur. I did that for a decade. And we turned that into a community center. We made sure that if kids didn't have money for a book, that we could afford to still just give them a book. We worked with the Decatur Education Foundation. We put in systems called the Galley Clubs, where we work with publishers, where they would send us advanced copies of books, cases of them, so we could give them to the kids for free. And so we had, literary after school programs, summer camps, all of that, because I understood the significance of the school to prison pipeline and how much literacy played into that. But what I recognized with working with these kids is that they didn't see themselves on the page.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. They didn't see themselves on the page. And so now that's why I write all of my novels that I write. They're all teen books that I write for Black youth. And I specifically write for hood Black youth, because I'm a hood nigga. I grew up in the Wild Hunnets on 107th and Wallace on 10th.
Hey, Kim, that's where I live now.
Yeah, see? So at the end of the day, I recognize that as a child, I didn't remember seeing girls like me on the page. And if girls like me were on the page, it was this really one-dimensional, weak version of a hood chick. And I started this campaign with the kids called Hood Girls Can Be Heroes Too.
Ooh,
I love it. I love it.
Can be heroes too.
I can jump in. I think for me, growing up, being born on out west, and having parents that went to Proviso East, the same school that Fred Hampton went to, and then moving and living in Kentucky with my grandmother, and then finally making it to Oakland, where I went to Lafayette Elementary School, the same school that Huey P. Newton went to. I think that you just kind of learn and you see things, and growing up in between Chicago, Kentucky, and then Oakland, and just seeing how many different types of folks, and then being homeless, like living in 4 shelters and seeing, just how fucked up the world can be, right? Like there's not, there's this belief that I have, if my freedom, my happiness, my success is dependent on racist people no longer being racist, then kill me now. Like I don't want to play that game, right? So I learned early that I got to be willing to take the final shot in my own life. And I played ball, and there was sometimes where I took the last shot, but we would often pass the ball to this one cat for him to shoot, and if he make it, we win. But if he miss, we lose. And sometimes they missed, and I'm like, I can miss. You know what I'm saying? And I think that in my life, especially being Black and what I see around the opportunity, I'm just tired of us trying to change how people feel and how people. I'm not about begging people to love me that don't love me, right? Like I don't need my job to love me. I just need my health insurance and my check to show up on time. So right. How I look at this country and how I look at my work, and even in the book that I wrote about young Black boys that grew up impacted by the crack epidemic like I was, that went on to become successful, become doctors in ways that Black parents can duplicate or at least understand those stories. So that's how I got kind of sucked into this thing, is that if you don't kill, you don't eat. And I just learned how to be a killer early.
Yeah.
That was dope. That's good.
So how, y'all see everybody, we're living in these times, right? As Charles said, racism has been around. Black people, they've been fucking with us, since they stole us and brought us here. How important is it now, given everything that's going on with education and, given what our kids are seeing in the media? Because again, it's not as if racism hasn't been here, it's just being more, publicized. So how important is it that we instill this by any means necessary mentality in our kids? Because, when talking about voting and just overall making change, how are we going to get there if our kids aren't getting that message, or they're not being educated like they need to be?
So they can't get the message when, one, the pipeline that trains teachers does not even discuss this. I'm back in school right now, and one of the schools at Georgia claims again that we build the best teachers. And so very, taken aback that I have to be the person that brings, the racial injustices to the conversation, right? Because no one else is thinking about it. It's matter of fact, even in how to train teachers in the videos, especially for special education, when Black boys are disproportionately represented in special education. So it starts with how we train teachers, but then it also connects to the curriculums that we're presenting to Black and brown teachers and Black and brown children. And it does not, going back to Kim's point, going back to what Charles mentioned, it does not represent us. So now that we know that, everybody should be clear on that. If you don't know, we don't have curriculums in our schools, y'all. It's 2020 that represent who we are and really teach, our people. Fannie Lou Hamer, they don't even know who these people are. So how can we say that we want to build young activists when they don't even know the activists that came before them and their work? So voting is a part of the process. It helps, but we also have to hold these people that are in these offices accountable to do the right thing, to spend the money in the Black community. There are Black authors and publishing companies out here. There's no reason that we should be still having conversations around this in the time frame that we're living in.
Yeah. I saw a question here, I think, for us about our books. It said, yeah. It said, do you see in your writing trying to? Well, y'all see what say. Yeah, I definitely keep a balance. Like, and here's the thing, David. It's super easy for me to keep a balance because all hood niggas ain't criminals. Just because I'm dating a girl who's from the hood don't mean she's a criminal. Don't mean there's some type of derogatory thing attached to her. I write my character as an AAVE. Let us be clear. The way that Black people speak is cultural, not motherfucking remedial.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
Cultural, not remedial. So at the end of the day, it doesn't take a lot of for me. I made Lena, who's the Black, my story, my one that's out right now, I'm Not Dying With You Tonight, is the story of two 17-year-old girls, one Black and one white, who survived the night in race riot. The Black girl, Lena, is the hero. Her lived experience of growing up in the hood that makes it so that they can survive. The little white girl, naive, ignorant ass, couldn't have survived that night. She couldn't have survived that night. The only reason the Black girl keeps her with her is because her phone dead and she needs the white girl phone. But in terms of getting from A to B, she's the one who gets them from A to B because that lived experience makes her fearless. It makes her be able to identify what's a threat and what's not a threat. Right. It makes her capable of knowing when they're safe and when they're not safe. And that's half of the battle. And so at the end of the day, my whole thing is to rebrand this entire narrative of the angry Black woman. See, here's the thing. The marketing campaign to make you fear Black men and dislike Black women is the most successful marketing campaign that has ever taken place in American history. So it's up to us to start dismantling that and rebrand it. That no one should talk about Black women and then identify a housewife. Someone should talk about Black women and identify brilliant young sisters like Markina and Mary Pat Hector and people like that. But it's up to us to rebrand. And this whole notion of the angry Black woman, this is what I'm always talking about. I don't shy away from that. I don't be like, no, I'm not the angry Black woman. I be like, you damn straight, I'm the angry Black woman. I'm murdering my kids in the street. Y'all have an educational caste system. I talked to all the Black MPs in the UK 2 months ago, and when I described to them how we educate schools, that's the term they gave me. They said, oh, so you have an educational caste system. And I said, yeah, and the thing that makes it so motherfucking insulting is that public education as we know it was created by those 13 Black lawmakers of Reconstruction. So you don't even have public education if it ain't for Black men.
Yeah.
Yet their line gets the least money. We spend $200 billion more annually educating white children than we do all children of color. Woo. That's bullshit.
Bullshit.
Go out, sis. Tell about it. Tell about it. I mean,
true.
That energy, though.
It's the disconnect of this knowledge, though, with and again, we have an obligation. You know, my daddy challenges me all the time. You know, we put you through school so you could go through school and come back and build, not go build for these predominantly white communities and these mixed communities where white people still have control. We sent you to school because when we went to HBCUs, they taught us the plan of what to do. And too many of us have gotten away from bringing the knowledge back home, because the disconnection is, we know that the curriculums are not in school, but we know that we have to reach the minds of teachers to be elevated enough and empowered enough to say, hey, yeah, Beyonce is great. And I know you guys are going to learn about Beyonce. I love Beyonce, nothing against Beyonce. However, but here are some sisters that I need you to know, because they're talking this in a language that I know that you get. You know, we want to be so mindful and conservative about profanity in schools, where hell, the damn students have been cussing out the teachers for decades. So why are we afraid of bringing in literature that exhibits those same things, but it speaks truth to power? So we want to hide that truth from them, but we don't want to hide the things that they already have access to teach them profanity anyway.
I mean, but are we hiding it? Like, when you talk about we, who is we? Because I mean, the system obviously doesn't want to teach our kids about history and who they are, you know, as heroes and powerful Black people. So it's not we, it's the system. And that's why I kind of want to get to, like, Kim and Charles, like, and just Jason, Neo, y'all too. What are we doing outside of the traditional system that wants to keep our kids in this enslaved mentality and keep them demeaned and oppressed and all this stuff? What are we doing as young, as activists, as Black people, to educate our kids otherwise, so that they can be radicalized and empowered? Like, Kim, you know, you talk about them seeing themselves, and, you know, the everyday young girl that walks around the neighborhood like she's a superhero. You know, but they don't believe that because they're being taught differently in schools. And then, you know, when we think about the bashing that happens within our own community, like, we got a war between black men and Black women. We have to literally unlearn a lot of shit. So what are y'all doing? What are we doing to help unlearn these mentalities, and again, these to knock these obstacles over, so that we can be more empowered going forward? Because she'll go hit the fan next week, regardless again of who's elected. So what are we doing? What can we do?
Well, I think one of the things that Kim had mentioned is the rebranding. Like, we have to get in spaces where we have large platforms, where we expand our platforms. And then when we have those platforms, we have to use it as a tool to teach our people. We have to do that. So that's what I'm doing. Right after the first time I had saw Kim speak down in Atlanta, I put out a article talking about the Harriets, and I went all the way back to Nubia and talked about how women were leading, how Black women were leading back then. And then I went up to Queen Nzinga and talked about how she was leading. You know, I went to one of the Caribbean islands and talked about how a sister led a slave insurrection there, and then started talking about these modern day Harriets here that are pushing the needle.
Truth to power.
And,
yes.
you know, we just have to educate our people, because we were not educated even when we were in school.
We need to co-author a book together.
Let's do it.
I got a deal. We can get a deal. We can get some money tomorrow.
I want to get in on that. Can I get in on it?
Let's do it.
Yes, I love the fact that we're elevating. And I saw that Toya, and hey Toya, I know she's watching. She's getting so many people chimed in this conversation. So shout out to her. I want to definitely make sure that as we're having the conversation, we're lifting up literacy, right? Because there are Black authors out there. There are Black-owned bookstores that need us to patron them. Barnes and Nobles is great. I know that they are paying our people hourly wages, but we got Black-owned bookstores, right, that we can get this knowledge from to help educate not just the people in the hood. Because here's the other thing that we forget, that the Negro is miseducated, period. I don't care how many degrees you have. There are people that are disconnected to the movement, because I've been reading all these different books, Black Labor, White Wealth. Sis Tanisha is reading Powernomics right now, The Atlanta Riot. These books have told us repeatedly that, we fighting the system, but the Black elite got a part in this too. Now I'm gonna stop right there, and I'm gonna pass it over to Dr. Charles.
Wait, let me. I want to, cause Charles, y'all pushing like big literacy initiatives in Oakland, so I definitely want to hear about that while we're talking about literacy.
Well, I think, one of the things that I did is I took, there was a grant that I had, and it was 100 racks, and I'm giving it right back to the community. And whoever has a plan around literacy, I mean, here's the thing, right? When we talk about literacy, is that if you Black and you are in Oakland right now, as it's one of the most expensive places to live, and you surviving, and your kid can read, and you surviving COVID, I don't care what language you use, like, you a genius, and we should be learning from you. You know what I'm saying? And like, $5,000 mini grant could have did so much for me. So that was one thing that I'm doing there, is just trying to like really talk about literacy. And I think that, you know, when we talk about education is one apparatus in which you teach people. I mean, listen, power doesn't seed itself. Why would a state that was built off of free labor and built off of teach you anything else so you can then hate that state, right? Like, you know, the same way as when I went to go do my doctorate, I was like, yo, this is kind of easy because y'all are training. This wasn't built for me. It was built for white people that's not adjacent to black and brown people. And it was like black and brown 101, you know what I'm saying? And my push on them was, I need to leave here knowing how to do research and knowing how to be scientific. But I think the other thing is you lift other voices. I mean, I yelled at Tanisha for a year before she started doing a podcast. I think that it's like, you know, I build my own, I create my own media, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, and so part of that is, it wasn't just Tanisha, and I love what she's doing here and with some folks that can support her better than I can. But then I did 10 episodes with Dr. Fuller, right? To like get his brilliance in here. Then I did it with Jaden Cummins, a black boy who went to my same high school, who's 17, around the youth voice. And now J. Artist Wright, a black mom, around how we can kind of be more agentic. And so, you know, I think that is finding those alternate ways and stop depending on your enemy to start being compassionate and to give you the truth and facts. That's dumb as fuck. So like, I'm just saying, right? Like, you get what you get. And so I think that there's a tool and there's a way to utilize those things. And the last thing I would say is, I don't care about the doctor thing by my name or whatever, but Black elders was the ones that said, you put that in everything that you do, because that's not yours. That's ours. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and I'll say it. I've written so many articles in Ebony and all bunch of Huff Post, whatever. And then as soon as it was Dr. Cole, I just republished the same shit. And then people treated it like it was magic. I wrote that shit 10 years before. So I think, you know, it's just understanding the part of the matrix that you in. And I just got to credit Chicago, Kentucky, and Oakland for that, because living in those three places with three different types of people, but with blackness looking very different. Like if you in Oakland and you've only lived in Oakland, you've never seen a black suburb the way that you can see in Chicago. Like it's always mixed. It's always 3 or 4 of us, or it's squalor. You know what I'm saying? Or if you ain't lived in Kentucky, you don't know like how the cities are. Black is in the center, the poor white people are right outside of you, and then the white folks that own horses and do stuff for the Kentucky Derby, you know what I'm saying, use they make those poor black white people feel like they better than you, so they don't uprise against them. Like, and I would have had that if I didn't have that type of lived experience. So, you know, stop depending on these schools to solely be the thing that educate your kids. That's programmed. And when they come home, talk to your babies.
Right. So y'all, I want to switch gears a little bit, right? Because we're talking about education within our own community. We're talking about empowerment and liberation as a whole. And Charles, you said earlier that you had a plan, you know, regardless who's elected, because shit's go hit the fan either way. If Trump stays in office, shit's gonna be the same. It's gonna get worse. If Joe gets elected, then you know, the white people. Well, I ain't gonna say the white people. Let's just say the Trump supporters or the patriots are gonna act a fucking fool, right? So what do we need to do now? What's the black agenda? I guess that's the question, because I feel like in order for us to get on the court and really fight for what we need to develop an agenda. And we are working in so many different silos, and we got so many things that we consider priorities, but we haven't, as a community, really identified those priorities. And again, just come together to tackle them. So what's our agenda as a people? What do we need to hit on first so we can move forward and hit on other things?
Mad when you say this the black agenda or whatever, right? They're like, who told you could speak for me? So listen, Araminta Ross is like my favorite person, and that's who I study and just how she operated and moved. You know what I'm saying? I think that you have to look at what the facts are, how things in this country came about, and then teach your kids and your community how to be, you know, how to thrive in within that. I think you should know how to protect yourself, especially if these folks start acting a fool. I'm just telling you, as somebody, you know what I'm saying, this ain't the house you want to run up in. Something's gonna end up in you. You need to understand how money and economics works. And I think that you also need to like divorce your feelings so much from the reality of what needs to happen.
That's good.
I don't give a fuck if you like me or not. I can like a lot of people and care about the person that's on the corner, but if I ain't giving them no money and helping them get a job, it don't matter how much I like you. I want respect. respect my vote, respect my money, respect my business, stay out of my way. You know what I'm saying? And we can operate. So I can be fine. Like, listen, and I learned this in Kentucky because there were strict rules around dealing with white folks and dealing with black folks. It's like the black and white people actually agreed on it, right? My grandmother was like, you don't ever argue with a white person. You come get me. It's sir and ma'am to black adults and to white adults. And then them white folks, they teach their kids, don't want your ass in that ghetto, like don't want your ass in that black neighborhood talking crazy. You know what I mean? I think that, and that sounds crazy, but that was probably the most harmonious place I lived when I compare it to Chicago and Oakland. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody else is caring about who likes me, who loves me. I don't care. I don't need you to like or love me. I need you to respect me.
I think we need a bureau. I think the Freedmen Bureau was exactly what we needed. And then had Lincoln not been killed and Johnson bitch ass didn't come in there and fuck everything up, we probably would be in a different place right here, right now. I think at the end of the day, we've been fighting for equality, but I think that's the wrong fight. Because I think that's the fight that the civil rights fought for. They fought for equality. They were successful at it. And if one more person say to me, I'm not my ancestor, I'm gonna punch them in the fucking jaw. Because was a person who controlled their emotions, who saw things through, who understood the long game. So no, you ain't them, because you ain't built from the same shit they built from. If you were, we'd be in a different place. The was 361 days of walking until their feet were bloody. Yeah, you ain't your ancestor, motherfucker. You ain't built like that. Right. That's real shit. So no, you're not you them because you're saying you're gonna pop off and punch somebody. Then that means that he who angers you controls you.
That's right.
Period. So I think that what we have to recognize is this is a head fight and not a heart fight. Now, this America is a motherfucking business. It's a corporation. So how do you get your stake in a corporation? Well, our ancestors who was gangster and dope, so don't come out your fucking face disrespecting them. Our ancestors who were dope fought for equality. That's why your ass can sit on a fucking plane. That's why your ass can sit anywhere on the bus. That's why your ass can go in any restaurant and eat what it is that you want to eat. That's why you can walk in any shop and shop wherever you want to shop, because they fought for equality. We have to fight for equity, which is very different.
Yes.
Very, very different. We have to fight for equity. Now, what is the quickest way to get equity? We need a bureau. We need to restate the Freedmen's Bureau and make it do what it's supposed to do. The biggest industry that is upcoming right now is cannabis. We need a cannabis contract in America. And so
say it one more time, sis.
We need a cannabis contract for Black America. The Freedmen's Bureau, or whatever we decide we're going to call it now, needs to be reinstated. Because if you have a bureau, then it tackles all the tiers. Then you can tackle education, healthcare, housing, equity, job placement, school, the environment. And keep in mind, it's some dope sisters on the front line doing environmental work. And although y'all think environmental work is for granola white people, the most disrespected environmental group is Black and brown people. This is where they are poisoning the water. This is where they are poisoning the air. So we need to be supportive of the Black environmental fighters. And also we need to recognize that we need to allow for people to do what it is that they are great at, accept that, lend it to them. I was working with an organization called Invisible Hate. We were working on getting Confederate monuments down. We were very successful. So far, we've gotten 40 down, and we're working on several more. I posted on there for somebody to download the app. It's an app that we have called Invisible Hate. You download it, you see a Confederate monument, you just take a picture, it scans it, it tells you every person in council or Senate that you need to email or call about this to get it down. These Negroes gonna come on my page talking about that ain't what we gotta worry about right now. We gotta worry about this police. No, that ain't what you gotta worry about right now. That's what the fuck I'm worrying about right now. This is what I'm doing right now. If you worried about the police, then you go do it, motherfucker.
Where have you been?
I mean,
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to the disconnection of what people know and understand. Kim mentioned Reconstruction earlier, right? Which is very important to this conversation. Neo was talking about equal rights. Charles was talking about the Panther Party and Huey Newton in the school that he went to. But there's a disconnection with this because here's the reality. And we were just having a conversation on another podcast about how, there are youth. It's not all. So let me just make this statement because there are youth out here that are following the likes of those that are on this podcast right now, and they're doing the damn thing. But there are some who are miseducated because their parents are miseducated. So we say things because we don't know any better. Because I had ancestors that died, right? Then all I have is a damn stick to remember my great grandmother because they burnt down their house. They killed them. People were dying because of this. And so what we have to remember is that when we want to fight for equality in this country, we need our own. I know Eclas is asking the question about what those who want separation, and that's true. I think that we all would agree that Black people know better than anyone. We don't have a right to be saying to anybody that you shouldn't have a choice. You shouldn't have your own mindset. You shouldn't have your own way of thinking because everybody is owed that. But until we come into our own look at Tulsa. Look at the Atlanta race riots in 1906 when our ancestors did have their own shit. They had their own everything. And that's, I believe, what is needed. And how do we get back to that place? We have to collectively start merging together.
We need to get our own shit and stay strapped up. Is that what you're saying?
But you got to be prepared. Yeah, because I tell you, I had to tell my husband, I was like, listen, you talking about you had a nightmare of a white lady coming up, not in this motherfucking house. Do you know my ancestors? That's why I don't just keep these pictures on my wall and have my sage and this walking stick and the prayers of my ancestors and my great grandfather's journal. No, baby, ain't no white woman came up in this house doing a motherfucking thing because I know the power that I have, whether it may be Jesus, Buddhist, whoever you believe in. I believe in the spiritual realm and my ancestors. So I know ain't no white person gonna want to come up in here. But our people have to be prepared because people are not prepared for what's going to happen because something is going to happen. 2 activists have just gotten killed in Atlanta. So something is going to happen after the election and we got to be prepared.
So Charles was spot on with that. Get prepared though. That's the question. I mean, realistically, we seeing a situation like, hell, I went and got my gun last year. We running out of ammo because people are arming up. It's like they told Black people that, or they demonized Black people for having weapons, but then they prepare young white people to be ready for a war. And so it's like now we're catching on to that. But how else do we prepare for what's going to happen, right? What's happening right now, what's going to happen post-election? Like, yeah, Kim, you said the Bureau, but what else do we need to do?
Build, invest. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim. But I just think that we got to invest in what we want.
Yeah, we talk about circulating the Black dollar, but we have to actually do that. Now, how do you do that? The first step is, again, going back to what this is all about, is education. How do you tell people to do something when they don't even have the minimal education in the things you are telling them?
Right.
You just tell somebody go start a business. This motherfucker can't balance a checkbook, and you just told him to start a business. So it's like at the end of the day, we have to reconstruct the way in which we educate. And see, here's the thing: the Black Panthers were always dangerous. But when they became the most dangerous? When they said, okay, we're going to galvanize all poor people. We're going after the proletariat as a whole. We're going to make sure, you know what I'm saying? When Fred Hampton started talking about, I need all poor people to stand up, unite against basically the equivalent of now what we will call the 1%ers, that's when they killed him.
Right.
That's when they killed him. That's when they was like, oh, this motherfucker lost this goddamn mind. So at the end of the day, which actually all it was he had gained his mind, and they're not a fan of us gaining our mind.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on what the sister was saying. She was saying about what about our ancestors who fought for separation? Mm-hmm. They were separated. See, here's what people don't know. Tulsa is one of 89 massacres. One of 89. not one of two. It's not Tulsa and Rosewood. You had the massacre of the Florida sharecroppers. That was
Yes.
800, and that was put on by the U.S. government, sent in federal troops for that massacre. People don't realize those bombs, that napalm that was dropped in Tulsa was dropped by federal planes. An average person didn't have napalm. And the fact that they don't educate you about that in schools, and this was the first time that a napalm was dropped on American soil as the new Americas, and it's not taught in school. So the first step is we have to begin to educate. You have to educate the people first. Right. And so what we have to do is we have to support the thought leaders that are giving the different types of education. You have to support the thought leaders that are teaching you about economics. You have to support thought leaders that are teaching you about agriculture. You have to support the thought leaders that are making sure that they're educated, and support them doesn't just mean repost them. Support them means if you know they teach a course that's $500, then when you get your income tax, instead of balling out, you go pay for 3 people to take the course. Support is not free.
Yes.
No, that's it right there.
If you want me to give you a free t-shirt, you support in my business. If we making a t-shirt, and we have to teach our people about other options in terms of industry. See, we have a lot of rich folks, like Chris Rock said, we got a lot of rich folks, but we ain't got no wealthy folks. So when people come on here talking, and people watch my video and I say we don't own anything, and they come on there and have an attitude and be like, I own my business. You own a t-shirt company. Who owns the fucking cotton? Ooh.
I mean, I think I agree with where Kim was going. I think around, especially the part where we talk about, like, you know, Fred Hampton, and again, shout out to because and that was also when they killed King too, right? They wasn't killing King when he was talking about black folks. It was when we tried to get all these other people to kind of come together. And I've been blessed to be able to sit and be mentored by Elaine Brown, who talked about those times and just that work. Oakland's like that though. You can go to the coffee shop and Angela Davis and just be there, like drinking coffee, right? So Oakland's small like that. I will say, you got to know your history, right? Like there's a book called The Bone and the Sinew, and my family is in that book. Like like the black folks, there are codes that help settle this area that's now Chicago and Indiana. Like if you know that, right? If I know that, like I have a stake to this place because my people, some of them bought the freedom of the rest of their people, like, you know what I'm saying? My dad and mom didn't know that. They didn't know that was a history, because I believe if you knew that what you came from, you can't pick up a crack pipe the way that they did. You know what I'm saying? God bless that they put it down. But that's why, like, if you think that your history started as slavery, if you think that your history, or when you say stupid shit like I'm not my ancestors or whatever the case is, right? We can't even get along together with Twitter. You feel me? Like, so who these people are, like, you got to pass a Jesus litmus test. You know what I'm saying? People will find one thing that you did and try to discredit you. And I just think that, so you got to know who you are. And the last thing that I would say, because I know I got to leave soon for my next thing, but you know, my therapist said this. I was saying, yo, I don't know if I got footing. Like, I feel like I don't have footing. And he said, well, you're not going to have footing because you're a trailblazer. There's no path there. You are slicing the path. Like, the way that you broke away from your doctoral program, right? Like, I argued and fought my doctoral program because I said I want my dissertation and my book to be to black parents and not the academy. I said I don't give a fuck about the academy. The academy don't care about me. I won't. Right. So every time I got a chapter approved, I took it to black moms. And if they didn't understand something, we would change it. And if I couldn't change it, that part just came out. If they didn't use it, what the fuck is it for? Right. You know, and you lastly, you just cannot. You need to learn from your enemy, and you also need to not expect them to give you the things to set you free.
That's good.
What I give you, if I got cows killing my land, if I got donkeys and horses, I'm not giving that shit to you until they're about to die or they got a disease or something like that. But I'm keeping the shit on my land, and that's what these people are doing. So they'll move some things here, they'll shift some stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's where I would start at is, and you need more things. And I'm so proud of you, Tanisha and Jason and Nehemiah. And Kim, I don't know you, but I look forward to getting to know you even more. And I'm gonna go buy all your books right after this if you send me a link. You know what I'm saying? But this is why you know, and I know I used to get on your nerves, Tanisha, like, yo, you need to be talking. You need to be this. I need little girls from the south side of Chicago to hear somebody from the south side of Chicago. And we know that the West and the South is very different, just like it is in Oakland, right? Like, and people need to see themselves represented. There's somebody that did not know Kim that heard her today and was like, oh, she sound like me. She looked like me. She talked like me. And she write books. And she want to write about. Maybe I can try. And the way you write a book is one word. And that's it. And you keep moving. This shit ain't that hard. I mean, I'm not taking nothing away from our skills and our talent, right? I don't have it.
Yeah.
But getting a doctorate degree is not hard. I want to demystify this shit because we make it seem like all this stuff is so terrible and difficult, and it ain't. You just got to do it, and it ain't about who the smartest. It's just about enduring and moving and getting to the finish line. So that's what I would say, and I just wanted to appreciate you all so much. I'm just very, very proud of you all, and anything that I can do in the future to help, let me know. I'll just drop off quietly 5 minutes to the hour, but I just wanted to at least say that part.
Well, shout out to you, Charles, for that.
Like, and then, I'm glad that, again, we're having this conversation. Y'all see Kim's website down there. Charles, drop yours too, so we can put it up there. But just going back to this piece, and I think a class asked this question earlier. Can we expect equity and equality? Charles is touching on the point that you just made. Can we expect the enemy to give us equality and equity? Like, what incentive are we going to give them to give us what we need?
We can't keep going back to them. We have to focus on what we can do. Like, I believe we are all walking billboards, and even in fighting the state, when them motherfuckers was like, "Oh, you trying to?" I mean, Neo, Tanisha, y'all know the story. Like, you trying to bring in more black male educators in this state, and we already don't want these kids successfully graduating. Oh, we gonna silence your voice. Well, you may have thought that you put me out of a system, but I'm still teaching. I'm still reaching youth. I'm still reaching parents. So we have to be able to take our message to the streets, to those coffee shops, to the barber shops. So shout out to Fathers Inc. that I have worked with here in Atlanta, that we already in the barber shops. Y'all talking about black boys don't want to read. Well, we have to change that narrative, because when people ask me, well, what are you doing? Why are you not going to the car show? Why are you not watching the basketball game? When you ask me what I'm doing, I'm at home. I'm reading a book. Oh man, that don't sound like it's fun. You may not think it's fun, but I know what I'm trying to build and what I'm trying to do. And if I don't have the knowledge to do that, then I can't help these grandparents that I'm advocating for. I can't help these black boys. I can't empower these sisters to do what they're doing on the front line and help them to get there if I don't have the knowledge. So we got to keep doing that. We got to build within what we have and not worry about what white America is going to continue to do, because they've done it for decades.
Yeah.
And the class, they won't. Just to answer your question, I don't think that they will. I think you have to find a way that's what the class was saying. For those that can't see, she said, what incentive does the enemy have to give us equality or equity? They have to see value in it for them, or they have to see that there's going to be a preservation of their life. So you should study what happened in South Africa and the way in which Mandela came out after all this stuff. And he said, in order for us to actually move forward as a country, everybody has to come and say what they did. White, black, it wasn't black people, it was white people. And there is no consequence, but we need to say it so we can actually begin that healing process. White people were inclined to do that because black people showed up with forgiveness and trying to move forward, as opposed to looking for revenge. And that's something in a place that we kind of got to get to. So I just wanted to make sure that I that I answered that piece for her, man.
That's dope. So spot on too.
Yeah,
definitely.
My bad if I didn't convey that message accurately, but yeah, it's again, just living in a country whose fabric is interwoven with racism. It's like, can we ever get to that true liberation somewhere where it's just like they don't want it for us. So that's what I was thinking. That's the conversation that we've been having. I think it's the question that the class asked. So that's just one of the things that is. Sometimes you wonder, what are we fighting for? Is the fight worth having here in a country that hates us so much?
Right.
Sometimes I wonder that as an activist, but we keep doing the work because it's obviously an aspiration that we have, right? Charles, you want to say something? It looked like you were.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I was actually reading that comment, but what I was gonna just say was, somebody texted me and asked me who's Araminta Ross. Araminta Ross is Harriet Tubman before she changed her name. And I study her because she was a small woman in stature. She had this head injury from being beat by a slave. But she still just did everything that she needed to do fearlessly. I also love both Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. And the reason why, and I remember when I was younger and I didn't understand Booker T. Washington. I didn't understand his strategy as somebody who came out of slavery, but is responsible for more than 500 Black educational institutions and is the reason why we have free public education in the South. And versus like W.E.B. Du Bois and his push, I really do believe them brothers got together behind a closed door and strategized and was like, we're going to look like we fight, but we're going to move forward. And I think just knowing our history and what we're capable of and actually being smart and thinking ahead into the future is going to be really, really powerful. And then finally, I think that you have to value things like this. I much prefer doing this and watching this than CNN. No CNN or MSNBC or Fox, right? But sometimes we got to just stop believing that white ice is colder. Especially,
oh my God.
Especially when and just think about it like this, and I'll end on this. Think about it like this. Every time we try to follow white people, we're behind economically, education, whatever, right? Buying homes in their neighborhoods. We always, when we just go do our thing, music, books, entertainment, whatever, hairstyles, they copy us and they find ways to make money off of it. And then finally, the same heat that we got for police unions right now, I need you to have that same heat for teachers unions.
Come on.
Thank you.
Both are killing your babies.
Come on.
Thank you.
Both are protecting white people.
Oh, you better
Both are institutions of whiteness. One is an institution of whiteness for white men, and the other is an institution of whiteness for white women. And holds either of them accountable. So right now, while we going at these police unions,
wait a minute, Kim done ran off the shout.
From the same heat and know where you came from and know what your value is, because we used to have Black doctors. We used to have the Black teachers in our neighborhoods were respected. They were well paid. They were professors. They were professorial, right? And we got to bring that type of prestige back. So I appreciate all of you and all your work. And if there's anything I need to buy, support, push out, do a show for you, whatever the case is for any of you, just let me know. And I'm going to buy all of Kim's books now. So thank y'all for having me. And I love y'all, man. I truly, truly do.
I just want to say it's so powerful. The connection on this show with Oakland and Atlanta and Tulsa and Chicago, because what Charles just said is so true. It goes back to our history. That picture that I have of the boss on my wall, that actually came from Morris Brown. And that brother, they did exactly just that. They would meet at the bottom of Pilgrims. I know because my daddy and them have told me, because they've been in meetings like that, right? About how we can build our own. And so what does that look like? It starts with encouragement, because it goes back to your question earlier, sis, about what can we tangibly do? Supporting one another right now, like setting aside. My grandma and them, they didn't have, my great-grandparents, they didn't have anything past the 3rd grade education, but you're talking about balancing a checkbook, Kim. They knew that like the back of their hand. If I'm going to get in 50 cents, I'm going to make sure that I give, 2 pennies to the church. I know that Norma Jean has this baking business, and I really love to be able to have that for my family on Sunday. So I'm going to save aside 50 cents for this. It goes back to investment, y'all. We can do this if we invest. Everybody can invest, whether you are doing, take it back to church for those who may be from the church scene, because even though I have my thoughts about the religion system that is used to oppress us, that your time, your talent, and your treasure, that goes a long way. And when Black people focus on that, how am I spending my time? Because time is value. How am I spending my talent? Because I can't be tap dancing for people that don't value my life. Yeah, I need to be entertaining my own people to empower them and encourage them, like Billie Holiday and them did back in the day. But then also, how am I spending my treasure? And I can't be screaming Black Lives Matter and I don't invest in Black-owned businesses. I don't invest in teachers. I don't invest in women who are screaming that they are not valuing our health. They're not valuing our mental state. So if I'm not investing in these things, y'all, then I can't be out here screaming that Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. And we need to invest in Black love. Like Black love is one of the most unspoken tears of Black revolution there is. When we think in terms of Black revolution, we think about healthcare and education and economics and police brutality and things like that. But what we don't talk about is the strategic and intentional way they pitted us against each other, so we don't even know how to be in healthy relationships with each other. And trust, your romantic relationship is a business that affects the way in which you move, grow, and develop in this life. And so we have to be able to have healthy relationships, romantic relationships, so we are raising healthy and whole children. We have to make sure that we're having healthy relationships so that we are pushing each other to the place where we are being our best selves, and you have that constant person that's in the house. So we don't even know how to talk to each other, treat each other, work through problems without being disrespectful towards each other. We don't know how to co-parent. It's funny, I had a really full and interesting conversation this morning with the woman that I call my baby mama, right? And I call her my baby mother because our sons are brothers. We have sons by the same man. Our sons are 6 months apart. So he was having a real interesting year, right?
Entanglement.
Right.
Entangled.
But it was some entanglements going on. But at the end of the day, she's one of my dearest friends. I woke up this morning and said, "Let me call Key." I was telling my partner, like, you know what? I ain't talked to my baby mama in a while. Let me pick up the phone and call her. There was a time where we made sure that our kids went to school together. She works in the medical field. She used to drop her baby off to me at 6 o'clock in the morning so that I could get the boys to school. But then she would come and bring food to my house and say, "This is for the boys because you have them in the morning and you having them in." We really got to get out of our feelings, stop being mature, stop thinking that ridiculous is the way to behave. We have to start being grown people. My child and her child are both brilliant boys. My son is on a full ride at a private boarding school. Her son is doing exceptionally well, but we raised him as a village. They didn't see no beef between us and their father. They didn't see no beef between their two mothers. Her child used to be in my house. My child used to be at her house. The only reason that's not the case anymore is because my son is off at boarding school. But I still call and check on my baby, which is her son. You know what I'm saying? And it's that maturity that has allowed us to develop fully well-rounded, well-behaved, brilliant boys. They're 14 now, and they have been raised as brothers. But that took me and her having the strength to not be concerned about what people exterior to our family say about our family.
Yes.
No, that's powerful. And just to think about Black love, you know, it comes in different forms. And I think that too often, you know, and I would be remiss to bring up the growing number of homeless youth. You know, there were even some homeless youth in the LGBTQ community that were at the last TPU march that we did. They came because they didn't have anywhere else to go, because their families threw them away. And we got to stop throwing away our kids, right? We got to stop, because if we keep doing that, what about the Bayard Rustins and the James Baldwins and, you know, so many other Lorraine Hansberrys that were such an intricate part in working alongside of Dr. King in that fight for equal rights. So we can't just keep throwing away our own. And I just thought that was so powerful, Kim, because there are so many of us that are in situations just like that. And if we focus on love, at the end of the day, I don't want to preach to y'all anymore, but, you know, we can't just throw away our family members, our villages. Like, we got to build those villages. That was powerful. And that's a way of helping right there. That's an investment. Love is an investment.
When I talked to her this morning, she said, "Oh, sis, it's so funny you called me because I was in the shower earlier today." And she said, "And I thought about your mom." And I said, "Let me call Kim and get her my mom's." Because when our sons went to school together, her mom lives in Kentucky. On Grandparents' Day, my mother would sign up for my son and her son.
Oh, that's good.
And she would go sit with both of them for Grandparents' Day.
Mentality. I love it.
Like we have to recognize what has happened to us, and we have to show more grace to each other.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's so good. Yeah.
Y'all, I hate to do this. I hate to do this during this conversation because it's dope as always, but we got to close out and make room for the next lab on our network that we're building. But I just want to give y'all space to you know, add your closing thoughts. And with that, before Charles hopped off, he mentioned some of the ancestors that inspired him, and I want y'all to do the same so that our kids, you know, anybody who's watching, if they haven't heard of these people, then of these mighty ancestors, and they can go look them up. So y'all gonna close us out with who keeps y'all going in this fight? Who's in your spirit?
Wow. That was, I'm stuck because I'm like, yeah, ancestors is a touchy thing. That's the only part that I really get emotional on, just thinking about them. But I'll go ahead and start, and I'll be very quick because I know we have another show. But I keep this card in one of the pictures of so many ancestors that I have on my wall. But Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin, she was an African American publisher and journalist, and let me tell you, she was so dope. She actually worked with William Trotter, and a lot of people don't know their names because when the Klansmen and all of these, white racist films came out, they were like the Kims and Dr. Coles and Neos and Tanishas and myself, and was like, oh, y'all think that y'all finna say this about us? Y'all think that y'all about to do this about us? And so she was an editor for the women's era. And they silenced her voice because, again, just like education, white men wanted to give white women something to do, to get them out of the homes and out of their faces so they can go and sleep with black slaves and whoever else they wanted to be with at the time. And so Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin is a black woman activist, a female activist, and I just want to uplift her name in this conversation. And yeah, that's it for me.
I will say two things. I just want to say they just dropped in there for me, Revolutionary Healing. I want you guys to go follow my page on Instagram, Revolutionary Healing, and there's an underscore after the healing. I just typed it wrong, but yeah, Revolutionary Healing and then underscore. No, that was me. I did that. But what it is we like to say is like Kanye's Sunday service, but on steroids. We do it every third Sunday of the month here in Atlanta. We are on expanding it out to the West Coast. And what we do is the first thing that we feel like Black people need to do is heal. And so we do it every third Sunday of the month. It's completely free. November is the only month that we're charging, and that's because we have a sit-down dinner, but normally it's completely free. And we offer free meditation, yoga, boxing classes. We bring in 2 OGs, 2 griots. September, we have Riza Salam. This month, we had 19 Keys. Next month, November, we have Professor Griff coming. We've had Black Elvis. We had all these people that have come. And it's a healing session. We usually have our Native American brothers and sisters join us so they could talk to us about the land. And we always do it as a forest preserve and what that land means. And so that's one of the things I want to leave y'all with, is that we need to begin healing. Now, a person that I admire is Mary Fields, also known as Stagecoach Mary. I love her because she's a gangster, because there ain't no picture you don't see without Stagecoach Mary with her shotty, because she would bust them down. And also, I just respect the fact that she was a Black woman entrepreneur who owned her space and took no crap off of nobody. She lived in the state of Montana. In the state of Montana, they had a law at the time in which she lived that did not allow women to go into bars. Women could not go into saloons. Stagecoach Mary made them make a state amendment that said no one can go into saloons except for Mary Fields. She made them change the law because she liked whiskey that much. And she said, "You ain't gonna stop me from going to the bar and get a shot of whiskey." So no woman could go in a bar but this Black woman, Mary Fields. And what she did as a postal worker, at the time in which she was a postal worker, you were an independent contractor. You're basically like these people driving these Amazon trucks. You had to have your own stagecoach. You had to be able to fund your own route. Not only did Mary fund her own route, but she became infamous because that was the lick back then, is that you robbed the male stagecoaches because people sent money in the mail and all of that. She never lost one stagecoach, because if you approached her stagecoach, she would pick you off. And when she retired from U.S. Mail, she trained over 50 other Black women to get their own routes and funded their stagecoaches.
I love it.
Wow.
Yes.
Love it.
You are an amazing storyteller.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think you've got some more books and movies in you too.
Yes.
So for me, I mean, collectively, I feel like I'm moving forward from the strength of all of my ancestors.
Yes.
Those who built the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but even before them, those who were sugar plantation, enslaved people in Louisiana. So I'm thankful to them. I feel like I owe them a debt that I will never be able to pay. And that's the reason why I continue pushing so hard.
Yeah.
Black Wall Street Times.
I'm the same as Neo. Like all of my ancestors are in me, beside me, and behind me.
Yes.
But specifically, who's inspiring me currently is the Honorable John Lewis. And enough said. So with that, y'all, we gonna head out. It's been another dope ass talk that real shit. And I am telling y'all, first of all, thank you to Sister Kim. Kim, you are dope as hell. You had my ass over here shivering.
Y'all, I know we gotta go, but when y'all should have heard Kim's speech, she was so just because she didn't even want to speak. And she was like, me, I was standing right behind her.
Oh yeah.
And she was like, me? She's like, y'all want me to? She was like, okay, I'm gonna go. And when I tell you the clouds, it was cloudy that day, like it just parted. Like I was in tears, almost for so many reasons. And it just really touched me because our work through the People's Uprising and collectively coming together with so many organizations is really pushing forward this work. So I just wanted to again shout out Kim and Tanisha. I'm just honored to be on this platform. And I know Charles mentioned this, but we are the next generation. We're doing this work. And I know I even have students that have, you talk the story that Kim just told. I have students that have made their school leaders change their schedules so they can too. And I'm proud of that because now there are young people that are listening. I don't care anything about the title. They see past that. They want to get this knowledge because they're like, we want to make change. So shout out to all the young revolution activists out there that are 13 years old and younger, who are just tuned into these conversations and want to make change.
Yeah. So all right, y'all, we gotta go for real now. So I just want to say again, thank y'all for tuning in, and y'all tune in next week, just the same as Dr. Charles Cole said that he don't give a damn about CNN and nothing like that. Next week we are having a powerful panel talking about pre-election coverage. Everything that Black people need to know, us talking shit about the election, all kind of stuff. So y'all make sure y'all tune in same time next week. Until then, y'all be good, be safe, be at peace, and do the work. We'll get at y'all later. Thanks for tuning in, y'all.
Peace, y'all. Peace and love.